this century is going to be dictated by autonomous vehicles, underwater, surface, air.
Hello again, and welcome to the Unmanned Podcast powered by USI, where we continue to explore the world of unmanned aircraft systems. As always, I'm your host, former Black Hawk pilot and aviation safety professional, Matt Hernandez. In this episode, we sit down with Dave Haynes, a Winter Park High School educator and a former Navy surface warfare officer. Go Army! Dave and I discuss the importance and impact of drone education at the high school level. He will also share with us some exciting examples of what success looks like from these courses. Let's get started. Everyone, we're here with Dave Haynes, who's USI's longest tenured instructor and partner, who is also a former Navy surface warfare officer, and we're super excited to have him. Will you give a moment to introduce yourself, your background, and quickly kind of your experience in drone education?
Sure. I did 23 years active. Most of it was either in aircraft carriers or recruiting. I developed a really good background in secondary education during my recruiting tenure. I've been with this program for 21 years at Winter Park High School, which is situated just outside of Orlando, Florida. We've had the ability to take the longevity of the program and put it together with some really high-end certification and licensure training to provide our students with outlets leaving high school that do not necessarily need post-secondary education. So we are a continuing technical education CTE platform, and we perform in that function here at the school. We also perform in dual enrollment with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical, so I am an adjunct professor with them as well. And we pair those up together to the greatest benefit for our students. And that's pretty much what I'm doing here now.
Yeah, that's great. That's super exciting. And what makes you, why do you think drone education is essential in today's environment and preparing youth?
Well, if you watch the news for a small moment, you'll realize that this is the transformational technology of this millennium, this century. Just as much as aircraft were at the turn of the 20th century, this century is going to be dictated by autonomous vehicles, underwater, surface, air. It is the coming of AI and autonomous vehicles. So this is relevant education for them. The job opportunities are just beginning to explode. They cover all areas of industry, from filmmaking to pipeline inspection to cell towers. They cannot be trained early enough to be able to accept the various challenges within the industry, because there's so many opportunities. You can do photogrammetry, and do forensic analysis. You can fly for Hollywood, or you can deliver ordnance on target, depending on your.
Yeah, I mean,
those that are doing that. So
yeah, it's good. It's good to point out how many different use cases there are, and I was going to ask you about that. So I'm super excited to hear about that. What do you see as the largest kind of vertical out of all those use cases you spoke about? Sea, land, air, unmanned systems.
Well, like all opportunities, it's contingent on funding. And I think right now that the military and state actors have obviously the most funding to put at this. And we benefit from that technology drop down. However, it has transformed the battlefield, and it has transformed national security initiatives. And that's where we're going to see the growth, is in the military industrial complex. That's what's driving the growth. And simply the civilian sector is luckily profiting from that by taking all of that technology and utilizing it towards commercial means, package delivery, like I said, forensic analysis, photogrammetrical reviews, etc. So certainly the military, but there again, they've been talking about self-driving cars since I was 6 years old, and the Jets were on TV, and I'm thinking that technology, helicopters, and I've seen those at the air shows where they have autonomous vehicles. You plug your credit card and your coordinate in, and away you go.
Yeah.
How long is that going to take? With the FAA, probably a while. They're a very conservative organization, as we all well know and love.
Yeah.
It will come to pass. So we will see those things occur. and we'll benefit from them greatly because we have access to areas we've never had before.
What are some of the critical learnings that your students get from this training curriculum and this partnership with USI? What are some critical thinking and teamwork and things of this nature?
I will tell you that they take to the technical information surprisingly better than they do the practical information. One of the toughest courses my students repeatedly tell me that I teach is meteorology. And I don't think it's because meteorology is all that difficult. I think it's this a lack of interest in the subject matter that causes them some hesitation in the learning process, because the technical stuff they jump right on. You want to start talking pixels and storage in gigabytes and the things that you might think they would trip over, and that's not it. It's the practical application. We make our way through those, and then again, there's other areas like sectionals. You have to learn three-dimensional thinking. So that part of critical thinking is key, because you have to look at a two-dimensional object and infer a three-dimensional product out of it, and that's different for them. But there again, even simple things, the Alpha Bravo Charlie alphabet, you'd think I was asking them to learn Greek. And it depends on the age of the student. My
for sure.
15-year-old freshmen have a little bit more difficult time, but we take longer in the prep for them before they step into it. We do go by the USI curriculum guide, so the first certification that they earn is safety. And that's a toughie. They're not used to learning management systems, and they're not used to the pace of the instruction, which has to meet specific standards.
And probably up until that time, if I remember being 16 years and younger, safety wasn't really in my vernacular, and I didn't really think about assessing risk as a youngster, taking my bike off of a ramp or down a hill or something like that.
You think about that, and that's not so far away when we all rode in the back of kids' pickup truck beds, and
that's right.
Didn't wear helmets, and all of the other issues that you might consider that we should be dead by now, or at least seriously injured, and we're not. But safety is huge in the industry.
That's right.
Safety is paramount. It's people, property, and events that you want to make sure stay secure and safe. So the FAA has done a lot to introduce people to those issues, but only when you're serving an industry do you appreciate the width and breadth of the experience you need to be successful in this industry. The 107 is a nice entry level. Okay, kind of like getting your degree from high school. Okay, you check that block. Now the learning begins, because you need to be a practical applicator, and that is a profession and an expertise that you learn over time.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because there is some discussion about drones, drone technology, and things of this nature, and how much it marries up with traditional or manned aviation. And I think one of the things that it marries up, hand in hand, is safety in the national airspace, and understanding that you are sharing this space with manned aviators and passengers and things of this nature. So it's super important that even at a young age, they comprehend and incorporate safety in their activities as drone professionals.
And I'll take that a step further, because we train our students basically all the way through the FAA pilot ground curriculum. So I have many students that go right on to manned aviation because they've had meteorology, they understand read sectionals, they've been through the safety portions, and they've attained licensure and certification while they're here. So it's an easy step for them to progress over into manned aviation, because we do everything that the ground school does.
And you're talking about, kind of hit on meteorology again, and I actually enjoyed it when I was in flight school, but it's tough to keep that interesting and kind of energize some students who might not be interested in it. But can you also share a memorable experience of when you had a project or a student that really succeeded in these courses and went on to, brighter and better things within the industry as a whole? Happily,
I have several of those. Probably most notable happened earlier on in our program, probably eight or 9 years ago now. I had a young lady named Nikki, and she was all of about 3'11" in shoes, and a little tiny thing. And she was an IB student, so she had the package, she had the brain on her, but she came through ROTC, which I am a primary instructor for. This is an ROTC program. She attained every certification that USI had. She attained every license that the FAA and FCC had. She went ahead and attained her private pilot's license before she graduated from high school, and then worked on her Part 61 so she could fly commercially, and found that she was 3 years too young. So she had already gone through instruments by herself and attained that. And she said, I got there because I didn't realize my passion for aviation. This brought it out. So we have a lot of different conduits for kids to go through. It doesn't necessarily have to be with the drone technology per se. But a more fun one is a young lady whose dad was a principal in one of our local roofing contractor companies, and he was sitting in my presentation when we present this information to all the incoming freshmen, and he kept elbowing his daughter, and I'm thinking, that poor little girl is going to get pushed into a program she doesn't want and do things she doesn't want to do. Basically, he laid out for her that she was responsible for all the mail outs to individual clients, and she would hang door hangers just for key roofing, as a way to promote the company. What he had her do was fly routes over neighborhoods and photograph bad roofs, and then put a door hanger targeted marketing to that roof, to the homeowner, and say, hey, this is your roof. We're Key Roofing. You have some problems here we can help you with, let us know. And he said that from that point forward, he said she couldn't be controlled because he paid her by door hangers that he got tremendous reply and response for his company from that. So
yeah, those are great examples of successes there. But another thing that is interesting to me is, USI partners with Women in Aviation and has gone to that conference many times, and it's super important that we educate and work in an environment that supports diversity and women in aviation. And I think I'm a believer that it begins when you're young. The younger you can expose somebody to aviation and technology, the better. And they get that itch, like you said, and they get that desire to be in aviation as a profession or in technology as a profession that they might not have been exposed to 10, 15 years ago. So it's really cool to hear that some of your best examples of success are women in aviation now, and that's exciting. So can we talk a little bit about, we talked about in the introduction how you're the longest tenured instructor for USI, which is pretty cool. USI has been around for over 10 years now, so you've been a friend of the company quite some time. Can you talk about how that relationship started?
Sure. It started with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical. When I decided to do an aeronautics program and move away from standard Navy curriculum, I went to flight schools, and I went to FIT and Embry-Riddle to see if I could gain some foothold in the dual enrollment market, and that was for several reasons. The least of which is it contributes to school grade, which is basically your principal's report card. So every student that attains a college credit instantly goes into school grade by the time they graduate. So that's point one. However, so does attainment of certification. So it's either a dual enrollment or a certification, but on either side, it goes to school grade. Now, the difference is that USI's certifications also go towards CAPE funding, state CAPE funding, Career and Professional Education, CAPE funding, which funds my program. So I was at Embry-Riddle. Josh had been just at Embry-Riddle, so he was a member of their staff. He had left to form USI, and I was looking for viable means to get school grade and CAPE funding into my program and into my school, because the buy-in then from the administration was automatic. I was adding to the well, not taking from the well, which I had been doing for the entire 12 years prior to doing this. We had no way to add to that function. Additionally, we attracted different demographic, which helps with school grade because they want to see shifts in accomplishment levels across the spectrum. And we represent some underrepresented demographics that end up attaining USI certification. So I started with dual enrollment, and that's how I met Josh, and then began testing his early curriculums with our students. And we were very vocal, and God bless USI. They took every comment we made to heart. We pared down the curriculum in some instances, reallocated it, rechunked it, and I've been teaching it ever since. But the huge benefit here is that certification in the state of Florida translates into dollars for your program if you're in secondary education. Yeah. So it's huge from that standpoint, as well as adding to the school grade of your school and your district, because all Florida schools are measured against that. So from a institutional perspective, a non-commercial application, this is great on the secondary level. You cannot get into the program.
And there's other states that have that type of resource or setup. Ohio being one that we're quite prevalent in as a company supporting them. Can you talk about a couple of the resources and what like support you receive from USI as a curriculum provider?
First and foremost is the training in the LMS, because that brings the program into the school directly. They don't have to go to VTC. They don't have to go off campus to tech. It's delivered right here, and that's huge. My ability to monitor their progress is huge, because I can see those that are working and doing the things that I need them to do independently, and those that are just waiting for me to spoon feed them, like unfortunately they're so used to. So it doesn't allow for that. And the pace is very quick. You fall behind, you can fall behind very, very far, very, very fast. So it allows us to instantaneously observe and to correct problems with student learning if it occurs. So I get a great insight from that. Also, they're developing new curriculum, which is great because they're aligning it with that CAPE funding I was talking about, that career and professional education funding. So there'll be more opportunities to submit. You can submit multiple times within a program as long as all of those are registered with the state of Florida. And all that means is that USI has taken a position within the state of Florida that they are delivering critically needed education for the work environment. And it's obvious, we already spoke about how flexible the drone technology is, what they're able to do. So they've been very successful in getting their courses enrolled in that system.
That partnership with the curriculum and you being able to deliver the curriculum to this age group, when they leave, when they graduate, they have certifications, and there's a new certification for those avionics technicians out there, the CAET as well, that USI provides. They leave ready to go to work, right? That's the way I'm understanding it, if wanting to.
Almost. We do the core of USI training here. So we go through all of the primary. We have one advanced for safety. There is additional training that needs to be done, but it's not extensive. So it is attainable. Within a year or so of graduation, you can have all of those certifications in pocket. And it's like anything else with the FAA. You need to recertify every 2 years. Usually it's a 2-year schedule to recertify. So we get them completely certified when they leave high school to take the next step. Because we haven't talked about beyond visual line of sight. We haven't talked about detect and avoid. We haven't talked about all of the aspects of it that they're going to get far more training on if they go to work for a Target or a UPS or a Walmart, or all the other commercial entities that are opening with BVLOS operations. So that's another learning curve, but they already are leaving and going into the workplace miles ahead of the individual who thinks they want to get into drone technology and take one of those jobs. What do I need to do? Well, start at the beginning. And these kids are already walking out 2/3 of the way there.
And what's the average start age that you're experiencing?
I start at 15, sometimes 14. It depends.
Okay, so and they go through and even like a senior can join your class?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't put higher grade kids in the freshman class. Freshman class is an orientation class. We do a lot of hands-on stuff. We build a lot of models, if you can see over my head. We talk a lot about airframes and avionics in general. We talk about aeronautical environment in general. Bring them up to speed to what they need to be understanding when we start the more curriculum.
Like technical components.
Right.
Yeah.
And it builds. year they hear more and more of the same thing, but it builds on the next piece and the next piece, and that's how USI.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it's structured. So it's good to see that that's working. And along that lines, what feedback have you received from your students? Do you get? I'm sure you have some that would like to see some different improvements, and some that just think it's a great program. I mean, what are you hearing from the students?
It's like anything else. If you want to drive a race car, the first thing you want to do is jump in the race car and take it around the track, and that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Or you want to be a pilot. Well, the first thing you do is go pilot yourself a private plane. They need to come into the system understanding that they're at the very bottom of their aeronautical knowledge. We need to build from that platform. So some of them, it's not quick enough, because I do have some students that come in here thinking, oh yeah, we'll just be flying drones all day. Well, wouldn't that be great? Love to be able to do that. However, we have METARs to understand, and tasks to understand, and sectionals to understand, and meteorology to understand, weight and balance to understand, communications to understand. I'll tell you, one of my toughest lessons is military time. And you have some kids that will, no kidding, stare at an analog clock and not know how to read it. If it's not digital, they can't read it. So there's some challenges in beginning this when you first start.
It's something unique to aviation where they say, English is the language of aviation, but then they go around and change it all and have their own bespoke language that's spoken throughout. So looking ahead at not just your school and your classroom, but the industry as a whole and drone education as a whole, what do you see? What do you think when you see the future of drone education?
I have many students now who are interested in the military technology simply because it's been highlighted so frequently now in the media and information networks. So keenly interested in that, because those things that blow up. That's the interesting thing to some of them. Others, however, realize the utility of it. I have one young man, his mom works for the local realty company here in Winter Park, and he does the interior and exterior views for his mom's real estate business. So he does all the post, and he said, I cheat. I just walk with my drone through the house. Well, okay, that's great. But he also does the outside. He does an aerial view. He gives her a full package. It's going to be limited by our imagination, plain and simple. There are so many aspects of it that either take over manned flight or negate the need for it. Back in the day, you had to have 20 guys go out to a plane crash incident to measure and photograph and get forensic evidence before it disappeared. One person with a drone can photogrammatically map that forensically, in whatever amount of time, depending on the size of the accident. So powerful technology. We use it in search and rescue. A good piece of the other half of this organization is National Registry for Emergency Medical Tech. So my first sergeant brings them up through the emergency piece of it. We are on the search, rescue, and evaluation. So if there is a hurricane, for instance, we go out and do damage assessment. Well, we do that with drone. I don't send kids on the ground to do that, but they go out to do the medical, the EMT piece of it. So we've combined the two into a emergency search and rescue. We work with OEM for both Orange County and for the state. So Office of Emergency Management are our partners in this as well. They're interested in helping kids look at OEM because that's a dying field. People are aging out in emergency management, and you wouldn't know that unless you talk to the people that are in it. And when you describe this to students, like, you're kidding me, really? I can go, I can fly these things, I can do these missions, and get paid for it? Absolutely get paid for it. So a lot of industry is interested in what we're doing because we need to engage a younger generation.
Yeah. And going back to what we started at, how broad the drone industry is. We talk a lot about how delivery and drone delivery is kind of what gets the TV time, but really there's so much more. You're talking about search and rescue. You're talking about aerial inspection and photography, agricultural, pesticide delivery or infrared inspections and things of this nature. It's just so broad, and it's just really cool to see the younger generation start to get excited about this technology and what is in store for them. So kind of closing up our conversation, which has been great. What is your advice to some of those students, and what's your advice to our audience who's might be watching this and thinking to themselves, man, I wish my school did this, or I wish I could do this?
The first thing they need to do is realize what they're bringing to the table. And I call it the self-licking ice cream cone. Everybody wins. There is no one that doesn't benefit from bringing one of these programs through USI into the school. The certifications feed outside state funding. The certifications feed students' resumes and vitaes. The money that is spent comes back into the school to build labs like I have back there. This is the house that USI built. It's the house that Kate built. You're getting $800+ a student for every certification that they pass on their boards. So very, very lucrative from a school standpoint. Know that you are bringing assets to the school. School grade. How do you get a principal to want one of these programs? Tell them you're going to start helping them make an A for his school grade, because you're going to be enhancing a new demographic with certifications that are CAPE funded. And then explain it to your guidance counselors, because guidance is what they drive the boat. So you need to bring them in, show them what you want to do, show them what the advantages are. They become your recruiters in a secondary school system. So you absolutely want to hook into them and ensure they understand the scope of the program.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's a good point to show that other schools can participate in this. There's programs throughout the nation that help encourage educators like yourself participate in drone education, not just USI, although of course we'd love to partner with them, but there's, other curriculum and things of this nature. Final thing I just wanted to say to all of our audience is, if you have any questions about the CAPE program and you're in Florida, you can reach out to us and we'll help guide you and put you together with the right folks.
If you want to visit, go to winterparknjrotc.com. On our website, you can get a visual cue of what we're talking about. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to speak with anyone, and I do quite frequently, and help with administrators to start establishing programs. So always happy to be of help.
Awesome. And when we started, before we were talking about some of our favorite subjects, Dave and I were talking ahead of time before we started recording. And I just want to say hi to Mrs. Sanchez, who was my history teacher way back in 3rd grade. I still remember her, and she was my favorite teacher ever. So you just be excited, Dave, that you make an impact on students that will be remembered forever. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dave. That was a great conversation. I'm so excited to hear the success of his program, and I look forward to having him on again, maybe with the students. Until then, subscribe and like. See you next time on the Unmanned Podcast.